All right, so we're going to do a panel now. So I'm going to invite our esteemed panelists on the stage, and I get to do the fun interviewing. All right, can we get a round of applause for our panelists?
There we go.
Wow, they're quick. Got my picture up there already.
We should sit under our pictures.
Yeah,
No, I'm good.
it's all right. Hey guys, what's up?
Good morning.
So today we're talking about actually fitness. So I want to know what you're doing. No, okay. I guess I don't need this anymore. I even got notes prepared. You guys want to see how prepared I am today? This is how we do it on the Bigger Pockets podcast, actually. We just grab a yellow piece of paper and write down some notes.
I like that one.
Kind of green. Is this yellow or green? Weirdos. All right, so we're talking location today, right? Location, location, and location. In other words, we're trying to find out how do we pick a location, how do we pick a market, both from macro and micro levels. So I'm going to start with just having you guys introduce yourselves and explain just real quickly who you are, where you invest, and what kind of investing you do. And your favorite color. Go.
Blue.
Okay.
Gene Garino, Residential Assisted Living Academy. We have homes that we own and operate here in the U.S., and also we have some internationally that we're looking at as well, but primarily the U.S. We focus in Arizona, but we have students all over the country who are doing the residential assisted living model.
All right.
Very good. Orange is my favorite color, which is a unique, weird color.
I don't hear a lot of people say orange.
Yeah, hey, you know. My name is Nathan Tabor. I'm from a little town called Kernersville, North Carolina. And my specialty is flipping Class C properties with high deferred maintenance, high occupancy issues in and around the Piedmont Triad, so Greensboro, Kernersville, Winston-Salem, High Point.
Okay. And then what kind of properties?
Multifamily. I'm sorry, Class C multifamily. And then I do a lot of how to find, finance, fix, and flip apartments as far as a book and consulting and that.
Cool.
My name is Lucas Hall. I started a website called Landlordology, which converted.
Is mic on?
Mike's not
Oh, your
on.
mic's not on.
Let's figure that out.
Hold on, let's try it. It's gonna have to yell really loud. Well, his name is Lucas Hall. And Lucas Hall is, I'm gonna try your bio right here. Lucas Hall was born and raised in Arkansas. Close enough. No. His favorite color is yellow. Fuchsia. Whose favorite color is fuchsia? That's the weirdest. Oh, okay. And he is the president and CEO of, nothing? Lucas is basically my counterpart at Cozy. Got it yet? Nothing?
Nope, that's right.
Okay, Cozy. All right, good. And Lucas also was at Landlordology and is at Landlordology. It's still there. Cozy was recently acquired by CoStar, so congrats on that. And he's a big deal. So, and you buy single family homes in, ooh, look at that.
Yes. Okay. Still not one.
Give it a second.
Maybe you're not on yet.
0 for 2, so
There we go. Look at that.
Thanks, Brandon. So, who is extremely grateful for Brandon Turner?
Oh. Thanks.
Little do you know, he is actually filling in for not just one, but 2 moderators who had to bail out at the last second. So, mad props.
Hey, real quick. Wait, sorry. I'm super grateful. I was going to say this in my thing and I forgot. Where's Joe Fairless at? Where? What? Oh, bathroom. All right. Well, we'll tell him later. All right. Go ahead. Keep going.
So, Lucas Hall at Cozy, I invest in mostly single-family homes and some condos. I have 5 properties in 3 states in D.C., Virginia, and Colorado. And I'm now at CoStar, which acquired Cozy in 2018.
Super
My
cool.
favorite color is blue, not
Blue.
fuchsia.
All right. So we're talking about location again today, and I want to start out by my yellow paper. Let's see. Let's go with this. What attracts you to an area? Like what? If you're looking large in the U.S., you're saying I want to go invest somewhere. So for you in Arizona, you said, right?
Well,
Like,
what
what
attracts
attracts you?
Yeah, what attracts me is the demographics. We're all about the care that we provided. It's a single-family home that's being used for the residential assisted living. So it's all about the demographics in the area. You want it to be located near a lot of people, and people of a higher income versus lower income. That's what I'm primarily looking for, and that's all over the country.
All right.
For me, my locations I'm looking for are normally closer because I'm buying 100% vacant properties and doing a lot of tearing down to the stud and replacing, so pretty hands-on. So for me, it's been around and if someone's looking at that, if you're going to go in and buy a 50-unit complex and gut it, it's almost, you got to be pretty heavily involved because there's not enough money to hire a nationally, general contractor to come in and do it.
Okay.
I first and foremost look at rent prices. So I try to find the ones that, areas that have the highest rent growth and that can command a higher rent amount than the neighboring areas. And typically that's places where people want to live. It's the trendy areas where you're never going to have a problem with vacancy. So I look for a very low vacancy, very high rent prices.
All right. I like it. All right, so what scares you about an area? What would be a red flag? Like, I will not invest there.
Drug dealers.
Okay. Drug dealers.
I mean,
If you want.
kind of say that jokingly, but if you're, being in Class C, the area, you can bring a property up, but you can't bring the area up.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to, what's in that area as far as, a lot of this, laugh about in a sense, but drink houses, drug houses, a lot of, things that are going to be hard to change, even if you change the property.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say for us, again, what we do is very unique. Later today, I'll get to explain more about it, but when he said drug dealers, I'm thinking, but elderly people need drugs. So
Yeah, well,
different kind
illegal.
of drug. But, I got it. But it's not important that it's next to a hospital. A lot of people think that's a myth. It doesn't have to be that. But area is very, very important. So the wrong side of the tracks, it doesn't matter what you do. And if somebody even gives you a free house, I don't want it if it's not in the right area. It's all about the location and the demographics.
I typically actually stay away from C-class areas because I can buy a B-class property or a C-class property in a C-class area, but then I get messed over when that C-class area turns into a D-class area or an F-class area. And I can control my property, but I can't control the area. So my level of margin there is that I typically look for a B- area with a C-class property and just hope that that doesn't fluctuate 2 points.
All right, so how do you research an area like that? Like, any of you guys use any cool tools that people should know about, or you just go walk the streets at night and hope you don't get shot? That's what I do.
That's what you do? That's your method? So for me, it really, again, comes right down to location. You pick a country, US, pick a state, Colorado, pick an area, call it Denver, and now you're right down to that. And then the next thing we do is we find out the rules of the game. So what are the rules? What can I do? Can I do? And then we're looking for the pockets that have bigger pockets, no. But the idea of pockets that have the right kind of clientele, demographics, so higher than normal income. So if the average income in the area is $70,000 a household, I'll look for the areas that are twice that. And if the average age is 34, that's not as good as an area that if it's 54, because they're not in assisted living, but their parents are, who are 80 and 90 years old. So again, it's always down to the demographic. We start big, go small, get local, find the rules of the game, and then follow the path.
Okay.
Mine's very similar to what was talking about the area. So when I'm looking at Class C, if the area is on its way down and it's continuing to slide, and the single-family home sales have gone from 150 down to 60 over the last 10 or 15 years, that's an area that's going to, in my opinion, is going to continue to slide. So the Class C properties I'm looking for are the ones that were built 40 years ago on the outskirts, a half a mile away from the nearest neighborhood.
Okay, yeah.
And then the neighborhoods now over the last 40 has grown around, but they're all still, they're 60, 70, 80-year-old homes, but they're nice. They're well kept. The yards are mowed. There's no, being in the South, there's no cars on cinder blocks, and there's no washing machines on the porch. Those are the types of areas because they're an established and have been an established C area. The age of the area is what's determining that complex. So the problem area in that neighborhood is the apartment complex, not the housing.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
So I first find downtown and then scrap it and say I'm never going to invest in downtown. But then I go and I find the A-class area where there's the neighborhood right around downtown. And the way I do that is actually, practically speaking, you go and you find the Whole Foods, or you go and find the Sprouts, or you go and you find like the Lululemons or the Athleticas, or my friend Paula Pant has this saying, I think it's just, she likes saying it, but she's like, go look for a Paneria. And she's looking for Panera Bread, but she's like, go find an area with Panera Breads. And I tell her, like, that's okay, because, you know, Panera is kind of everywhere now. But, you know, you find that A-class, and then you go a couple miles outside of that, and you try to find the highest rents you can closest to Whole Foods that's not in the A area. You want to find the B area. So practically speaking, that's kind of how I do it. I don't rely too much on data for that. I actually just find out where people are shopping.
All right. Do you guys using like software, like you know, tools? I mean, CoStar, things like that. To, like,
We use a
research?
lot of various sources of information to get the demographic information. I wish it were as easy as Paneria. That'd be great.
Mine, you know, MLS comps,
Okay.
looking back, what are the houses in the area been selling for, just to kind of see if the area is sliding.
Yeah. What would it look like to be sliding?
You know, if the home prices in that area, you know, visually, if things are not being kept up, there's deferred maintenance on the housing, then the prices have started to slip in that area. You know, then people aren't going to be coming in to buy to stay. They're going to be coming in buying to maybe rent.
Yeah, okay.
So I look at it, try to go back 5 or 10 years and see, have the houses in that area been holding pretty close to their market price. But you can also kind of tell that just by looking at what's those houses. If the houses are nice, then you can bring the apartment complex up. If the apartment complex is bad and all the housing's bad, even if you bring your complex up, you're probably going to be shortly going back down because of the area.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can go to the other?
So data sources, I just started working for CoStar back in November, and it took me about a month to get access to their suite of tools, and it's amazing. So I'm not trying to promote CoStar too much, but honestly, guys,
Do you have any discount codes? Or
I don't.
Just,
but if you want to invest in multifamily real estate, just go try a free trial at CoStar, because you can get access to everything you need, and it'll save you hundreds of hours of research. But outside of CoStar, if you don't want that paid subscription, I like to look at World Population Review. There's a funny website called Neighborhood. It's like neighborhood, but new. And then actually the National Apartment Association has a really good amount of data that they release in these publications that will help you figure out, you know, little neighborhoods or even sub-neighborhoods within the place you're looking. So all those are great sources.
2 other sources I use real quick. The CBREs, Marcus Millchap, all that, they have quarterly reports that they'll put out for areas.
Do you
So
pay for that? Or
You can, no, you can just sign up for it on their website. Okay. It's just a PDF they put out. And on the commercial side, is really neat. Most banks have their commercial list of pending foreclosures. But if you talk with a commercial banker, there's nowhere you can sign up for it.
Yeah.
You just have to ask, hey, could you add me to? And then they'll send you a monthly PDF of all the potential properties that could be foreclosing in the area.
All right.
So it's a pretty cool way to see what else is going on in that area.
All right. So what about population size? I know there's a lot of people invest in rural areas. It's like the word I struggle with more than any. Rural areas. Some are only city. What do you guys invest in? And then how small is too small?
All right, I'll start.
All right.
The bigger is better, more people, because that means population-wise there's more seniors that will need the assisted living. But how small is too small? We've had students do it where there's literally 1,000 people in the town. So it's about what else is out there in regards to supply and demand and so on. So even in 1,000, if there's 50 people that need that help and there's no place to go, one home is all you need. But if you're in a larger location, you're going to have more competition. So talking about the research, it's really important very locally to know what it is that others are doing in your area. And that way you know exactly what the competition is, and you can either tweak so you're a little different or better, or do it in a different area. And one of the things we look for when I think about the Paneria, which I think is so fun to say, but the idea of when you see a big box facility coming in, a Brookdale, a Sunrise, an Altria, and a lot of you have seen that, that's a good sign. because that means they spent a bunch of money on market research to tell you that the need is there, the seniors are there, the money's there for decades, and we're doing a home with 10 or 12 people, and they've got to fill 250 beds, and we fill 10. So right at the end of their driveway is the best location.
Uh-huh.
I like that. That's cool. For me, I look in an area, because if you start getting over the 100-unit mark, then you start competing with national buyers, syndicators, and that. So when I look at an area, I try to find 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6 complexes that I can target, that even if they're not for sale, so there's a 41 here, there's a 50, there's a 60, there's a 30, and then try to put together a packet to take down at least 100, 150, 200 units within a 5 to 10 minute drive of each other.
Okay.
So, you know, the theory of you can hire one person per 100 units. So if you have 50, what do you do with the management? But if you own 150 units within 5 minutes or 10 minutes of each other, then you can still hire one manager, 2 or 3 maintenance folks, and so instead of having it all at one property, you can still have the larger numbers within driving distance of each other.
And if you could find that in an area that was small, I mean, let's say there's an area, it's like a tertiary market, you know, I don't know, call it 75,000 people in a market. Would you buy a large 100 unit in that area, or would you just avoid that if it's too small?
Well, it depends, you know, if it was in that area that it was a good solid Class C and a solid Class C neighborhood, yes.
Okay.
If it were sliding down, like I've done deals, the little town I'm in, we got 35,000 people, and I've done a 58 unit in that area because there are working class people who they want a nice place to stay. And it took me a long time to realize that it's just not apartments, these are people's homes. Yeah. And when I changed that mentality, for me, you can really get some good, solid Class C tenants who aren't trying to cheat you. Yeah. They just want a nice place to live, and that's the most affordable place they can. And I found in those smaller communities, 35,000, 40,000, you either get the Class A that's on the, you know, bigger town, Winston-Salem, or you get, you know, C minus or D. And the people can't afford the A or B, so I've been able to find that niche of going in and making it a really nice Class C, yeah. Not marble countertops, not tile, but then also making sure that the drug dealers and the drink houses aren't running it, and then you can really put together a good base of tenants that way. So I like the smaller areas for that.
Yeah, I bought that fourplex I mentioned earlier about my daughter Rosie. That's at a C-class area, definitely, probably like C- class. But what I discovered in that process is that, you know, we fixed it up a little nicer than we probably should have. Mm-hmm. And what I say now is that even C-class tenants watch Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? So like, but nobody's catering to them in that niche. Like nobody's providing, very few are providing really like good, nice, clean houses in those areas. So what I found is that when we did that, there are really good tenants in those areas. There's good tenants in every area, and those people want to live in that area. For whatever reason, they want to live there, and they watch Chip and Joanna, and they want that thing, and they will pay way higher. I mean, I get higher rent in that C- property, like C- area, than I do in like my B class. Like I get higher rent, even though it's a worse neighborhood, because I just did a little bit better job fixing it up. We have lower vacancy there. It just runs really smooth. So it's that same
Which
thing.
Which makes no sense. I mean, when you put it down on paper, it makes no sense, logical sense. Yep. But it actually does work.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, when you were saying that, you know why it works? We got 4 guys on the panel here. It's because who's decorating for you?
My wife.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's it. Same because here. If it's a couple, she's going to make the decision, yes or no, and a lot of it's based on that woman's touch. And I'm not doing anything other than being observational here, but we look at it as bricks and sticks, and they look at it as a home.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah.
So my official answer is that I don't look at any markets less than 2.5 million if I'm wanting to do something close to 100 units. Now, I've never bought a 100-unit complex, but what I personally do is I actually try to find high-density areas and then take something and make it a little different. Take something, a small multifamily, and make it into kind of a boutique unit or a boutique set of units. And what I mean by that is, in DC, where I have these row houses, I'll take them and I'll convert them into, by adding extra bedrooms. And so I know that lots of young professionals move to DC, they get internships, they're making like 30 grand a year, so they have no money and they want to live together. And so like that doesn't sound like a great tenant, right? Like a bunch of young professionals right out of college making 30 grand a year. But if you put them all together, they can afford $5 grand a month or $6 grand a month. And so if I take a row house and turn it into 6 bedrooms legally, and I put them all in there, they're more than happy to live in community, and they just want to succeed at life. And they're doing it together, and they're paying $5,000 to $6,000 a month, and I'm able to get $2,000 to $3,000 more for that single property than I would be able to if I rented to a single family. So by doing that, I'm providing mass housing for that group, and I'm able to command more rent. So just making it a little bit different, making your product a little bit different will cater to an audience that might really be desirable and in there. So another quick example is that I have a friend who's a developer in DC, and he was doing okay, right? He was buying big row houses and turning them into 3 different condos, and then he would rent the ones he couldn't sell, and he was really having a hard time. But then he realized, well, you know, it's a popular place to live. It's great. There are young professionals that are starting to build wealth. So what if I just go ahead and do 2 master suites in this 2-bedroom condo? And as a result, his products started flying off the shelf, and he couldn't sell them fast enough. And it's because, you know, like Neil said yesterday, no one really wants to share a bathroom, right? But every 2-bedroom out there usually has one, you know, 2 or 3 bedroom has one master suite maybe, and then the other bathroom is shared among anybody else that's there. But if he gave everybody a bathroom, it was now different. So if you can do that on a large scale, you know, potentially a large apartment building, then you will have something that nobody else does, and you won't have a problem with rent. You'll be able to command more, and your vacancy will be lower. So that's how I twist it.
Yeah. Have you guys ever made a mistake on a location? Like bought something that you were like, I thought it was good on paper, just didn't work out.
How much time you got?
You want to go first?
You were sharing some great stories with me back there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
All my failures.
No, what? You had such great wisdom, though. I got to say, I was listening to him. You were sharing things, and I said, that right there is worth the price of admission, that one idea.
Well, I appreciate that. The first deal I ever did, 18 units, had no idea what I was doing. I made $223,000. Didn't know what a cap rate was. Had on my big pride britches and my goggles, and went into my second deal. Bought it, lost $150,000 in 18 months.
Wow.
On my second deal, and it was one 5-minute phone call that I didn't make. And the lawyer, the appraiser, the surveyor all said the property was grandfathered in. I just took their word for it. I bought it, closed on it, and 2 years earlier the property had been split, and the setback was 25 feet when it was built. The current code was 40 feet. So I had an option of buying a building and tearing it down, or tearing half of mine down. And had I just made a 5-minute phone call to the zoning department and said, hey, is this zone, can you give me a letter signed, I could have avoided all of that.
Wow.
So that's been one of my bigger
Yeah.
mistakes that I've made.
All right.
The other, and real quick on this, is buying a property that great numbers, great deals, thinking I could bring it up, but the area was not an area that could be brought up.
Yeah.
The entire 8, 9, 10 blocks was bad. And you know, if you think you can bring something up, you're not going to be able to, not in that type of environment.
Yeah. Mistakes, you guys?
As a small investor, my biggest mistake was buying condos. So for those who look at just single houses or single condos, you know, the HOA fees are typically too high. Condos in A-class areas or trophy class or even B+, the fees are just going to take away any profit you have. Plus the HOA at any point can decide they're going to limit the number of rentals. They rarely ever grandfather stuff in. So I did have an HOA decide, hey, everyone can rent, down to only 20% of the units can rent, and now you have to go into this lottery system. And so I luckily got in the lottery, but as soon as I lost my spot, I had to sell because it was sitting vacant. So condos, not great for investing.
All right. Wow. All right. I'm curious, kind of maybe the last question before we do a couple Q&A. I'm wondering about when you pick a location, how do you separate data, what the computer says, compared to just like walking around yourself, like subjective versus objective? Like how do you balance the two, and what do you guys do when you're investing? Like, do you go to every property, every neighborhood that you're going to buy in, or do you just rely on the facts?
Absolutely, gotta go there for me, because what we do is very, very local. So yes, look at the macro data, but you have to get yourself on the ground and do some of that research. And when I say me, whether it's me or somebody else, I think that's really important.
Yeah, for me, it's looking at everything except how much money you can make. Because if in my life, when I got focused on how much money I could make, I missed things that I got blinded to. So I walk every property, I walk every unit. If I can't get in a unit, I take $40,000 off the price.
Really?
Because I just assume that it's got to be completely gutted. Yeah. And what I find really quick, as soon as you say, oh, I need a $40,000 reduction, they find the key. Every time. So, really making sure that the due diligence is done, no matter how great it looks on paper, making sure that everything lines up. Rents coming in. We were talking about, real quick of seeing bank statements, because people forge tax returns, they forge them. IRS doesn't care if you report more on your tax return. They only care if you under-report.
Yeah.
So, really making sure you get in and dig in on that.
All right.
I like to walk the neighborhood at night, or at least drive the neighborhood at night. So if you're thinking about some place you're not familiar with.
Are you looking for the drug dealers, or are you, I'm just.
No,
Oh, okay.
I mean, if they're there, I'll see them, but but anybody can walk a place during the day and it looks great, right? I mean, that's when everything looks its best. But what I'm looking for is I want to find a place where people feel comfortable jogging at night, especially in humid areas. It's too hot or too humid to jog during the day, so they jog at dusk or later. And if somebody who lives there doesn't feel comfortable jogging at night, then I don't really want to be there. That says a lot to me. So that's what I'm looking for, is joggers.
I often say that one of my rules of thumb, like when I'm looking at an area, I was thinking, like, would I feel comfortable during the day my wife jogging there? It's like a simple rule of thumb, but if my wife could jog during the day there, then I'll likely look into that area more. Like, that's just a super simple rule of thumb. But
as far as data on that, police reports.
Oh yeah.
Most municipalities now have where you can go online and go back 2 years. Yeah. And if you can't do it online, you can just call and they'll give you the data. But that will, probably not mess much with your areas. But if you're going into the B or C, you can get a really good picture by pulling the police reports.
Actually, on that note, I was looking at it was like a 23 unit or something like that in Aberdeen, Washington a year ago, and the numbers looked great, everything felt great about it. So then I walked the area and I felt, I'm not sure about this area, I don't know, and I didn't know that particular area that well. Anyway, so I walked over to the police station. I just went inside and I was like, can I just talk to a police officer? And the guy just told me everything about that area, and I backed out. Yeah. Even the property, he was just he laughed at me and he's like, oh, that one. Yeah, we know that really well. But the area, he told me about all the problems they've had in it, and and they were really open to telling me everything.
The property manager didn't tell you that?
No, nothing. No, that pro forma looked so good. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do some Q&A. If you guys have some questions about location, I see something back there.
Nope.
It's John Douglas, Legacy Investment Group from the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. This question's for Nathan. At a macro level with investors, we're really drilled into markets, major markets. And when I speak with investors, a lot of times I may have a deal that's just outside of their market. My question for Nathan is, how much do you think we're missing sometimes by not going directly, staying within that market that you're looking at rather than jumping outside of that sub-market? Do you look at the deal no matter what the market is, or do you sometimes just stay directly in that market?
For me, there's a difference in Class A and Class B versus Class C. I would highly, if you're looking at the bigger apartments, you got to really look at the market. Where's the economy? What jobs are coming in? What businesses are building? But if you can find that Class C property that's built in that residential neighborhood that's been established for 50 or 60 years, and it's 50 or 100 or 150 units, In my opinion, that is not affected in that area as much as the one that's setting on the edge of the rougher part of town, or the one that's got a lot of issues already with it. So a lot of deals, in my opinion, in the Class C markets are missed because if they're not in that top 10 or top 25 market, oh, well, then something could go wrong there. And that's kind of where my niche has been, of like, hey, y'all all stay out of those markets and just let, the smaller investors play in those. But there are a lot of opportunities out there in that Class C that aren't Section 8, that aren't in the bad parts of town. They've been owned by a family for the past 40 years and no one's done, they've used them as a cash cow and didn't do any of the deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, as investors, if you're trying to find, like, where can you find product? It's in the Class C market outside of the top markets.
All right. One more question? Right there.
Andrew Kiefer from Houston. Quick question, I guess, for all of you. Have you ever invested in any coastal properties, like anything on the water, near the water? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, coastal properties?
Yeah,
investment
I
in
mean,
the
'cause
water?
I've heard some bad things about it, and I just wanted to get your feedback on what's your experience.
Sure, yeah. Experience with properties on the water.
On purpose? No, just kidding. We're looking at some projects in Belize and Panama right now, so that would be more coastal, but actually for us, it's not a benefit to be on the water. It's cheaper and easier to be a little bit inland, so it's not a focus for me, what we do.
I've not personally done any investing in the coastal. I've got a bunch of clients that are doing Amelia Island, places that are warmer year-round, and doing them as Airbnb and making a killing. They're going in and buying the 30, 40-year-old houses, bringing them up to the HGTV standards, and then renting them for $500, $600, $700, $800, $900,000 a night with a 7-night minimum.
Yeah.
I haven't, but my family has 2 condos in Florida right on the beach near Satellite Beach. And maybe it's just Florida, but it still hasn't recovered from 2009. And so they're still in the hole, 10 years later. So, I think my observation is that, especially Florida and probably a lot of other coastal cities, the prices fluctuate so much that it's hard to get a standard growth on that. And so you're buying for the beach, you're not buying for that property, and so if that's what you want, then that's okay. And there are plenty of tenants who will pay through the nose for a beach property, but you also might have to go through a downturn at some point.
Yeah, and most of my properties are in Grays Harbor, Washington, which is, most of my portfolio is within a mile of the beach, but it's a low-income area. It's not a resort area. And the biggest concern we have is just flood insurance. We've got to make sure that we're in an area that's not, I have flood insurance, but it's the most risky thing, I think, in my portfolio, because if the Fed stops subsidizing it, it's just going to jack up my prices. So there we go. Anything you want to add? You good? All right. We're getting out of here. Thank you guys very much.